I'll say when she walked in, I turned around and thought she was beautiful. And so we flirted for a while. You know, there's a professional courtesy, obviously, when you're working. So, you know, nothing happened while she was at the clinic, and then she got discharged from the clinic. And then I was at the gas station in Walnut Creek one day with a buddy of mine, and I was standing there, we were outside of our cars, and all of a sudden this car like rolled right up next to my leg, and I was like, who's trying to hit me? And I look over and it was her.
It was me.
Going on, there is a parallel life going on in your daughter's life. So we're going to talk to Danny and Krista now. Tell us how you both met. Take us back to the first day, and were you immediately decided that this is going to be my life partner?
Okay.
I'll let you talk.
So I injured my knee. Nothing, not even a cool story behind it. I just was at work one day and took a step down a step and felt like a knife went through my kneecap, and I couldn't walk. And so I went to my friend's husband, was a PA in the area. He referred me to a doctor, orthopedic surgeon. Went in, and he, after telling me all the things that were wrong with my knee, suggested I start physical therapy, and referred me to a clinic. I was living in Walnut Creek at the time, and I believe there was a clinic in Walnut Creek and in San Ramon. Mm-hmm. For some reason, I went to the San Ramon one. Now we know why, because guess who was there? Danny was there. Yeah. And Danny was working as an assistant. It was before he went to grad school. So he was working as an assistant, and we just, he was working on my knee. I don't know. We just talked.
Did you talk about hummingbirds?
No, in fact, today was the first time I've heard about the traumatic hummingbird situation. So we have so many in our house, and he's never mentioned it. So no.
Well, now you know. So how was it? Tell us how it was. How did it evolve? You started talking, and explain to us what happened and how did you get married? And where did you get married?
Okay. I went in for, you go in for just a few weeks or something.
Here,
Why not?
I'll take this back. So I'll say when she walked in, I turned around and thought she was beautiful. And so we flirted for a while. There's a professional courtesy, obviously, when you're working. So, nothing happened while she was at the clinic, and then she got discharged from the clinic. And then I was at the gas station in Walnut Creek one day with a buddy of mine, and I was standing there, we were outside of our cars, and all of a sudden this car like rolled right up next to my leg, and I was like, who's trying to hit me? And I look over, and it was her.
It was me. I was re-inflicting the pain he had,
That's what I was going to ask you. Was it
and so we would talk every once in a while. We would kind of text back and forth, check in. And then in December of 2009, I think it was, we ended up going for coffee. And I thought it was going to be a hour coffee thing, and it turned out to be 4 hours, and we had a great talk. It was 4 hours. Yeah.
I'm old. I don't
Which coffee place was this? Was it Starbucks or Pete's? For people who are going to listen, they may want to go back to that same coffee place.
I know you're gonna start spreading rumors about these two.
Should we lie and say it was Pete's?
I mean, I like Pete's better, but it was Starbucks. I actually like Phil's the best, so maybe it was Phil's. But it was Starbucks, and so I just remember walking out, going, wow, if I can sit there and have a 4-hour conversation with this girl, there's something special. So We ended up going to dinner like a month later, and neither one of us thought it was a date. We just thought we were going out as friends, and from there on, we started dating. So
There you have it.
it evolved.
So I'm going to ask each of you individually. You both have strong personalities. Krista's parents have strong personalities. Your parents probably have strong personalities. How was it meeting the parents first? First time.
I can't remember the first time I met your parents.
It's that blurry,
Up
huh?
in Granite Bay, so they're not around as much. But Danny was racing cars at the time, and so I think I met your parents at the racetrack.
Yeah.
At Sonoma, first time.
And then I think I met Joyce first. I think Greg was living in Mexico at the time. So I think I went over there for dinner, maybe not for dinner, maybe just to go over there.
My mom probably remembers.
Well, that's what I was going to ask Joyce. I'm
Yeah.
sure she remembers. She's nodding. So please tell us, Joyce, how was it meeting Danny? What was your first thought when you saw him?
Okay, you walked in my sister's front door.
Oh yeah, this is a good story. Yeah, this is a good one.
And because Krista's dog Sadie stayed with my sister and her husband during the day when Krista was at work. Well, I don't remember being a story as much as I just remember you walking in, and when you walk in, you walk down some steps to the living room. And I just remember seeing you and thinking you were very cute and you were very, very nice. He had very nice manners. Still does to this day. But one thing about Danny, always his manners are very, very nice. Was there anything that
How was
happened?
it meeting Greg and telling Greg? Who told Greg?
About Danny?
Because he said Greg was in Mexico at that time.
I probably did.
How was it meeting Greg, Danny? Let's ask you.
I mean, I think it was fine. I was never that intimidated by like parents. Like if I went to somebody's house, I was always, I was going to be respectful either way. And I kind of knew from a standpoint of, I had always wanted to be a dad, and I knew how I would have been if I had a daughter. And so I always tried to treat it that way. So I just tried to be respectful. I mean, Greg was fine. I don't remember there being any issues. He was pretty passive and it wasn't that big of a deal. And
that's the first time anyone's ever used that word to describe Dad.
And then I met him, and then but
there are many firsts happening in this interview, so it's a good thing. We're learning so much about each other.
I actually think I think that twin A met Danny first.
Danny, my sister met Danny before I did.
I think that story was I came in a black sweatshirt, and your aunt's daughter's dog thought I was breaking into the house and tried to attack me. So that was the first real meeting.
But she was a little like Chihuahua, so don't worry.
Yeah.
No big deal.
Now, Janet and Joyce don't look alike right now. When you met them, were they anywhere looking alike to you, or no? They're completely different.
This is like the universal question for me. I get so confused by this because I look at pictures of them when they were younger and they look identical. And then I look at them now and I don't think they look identical at all. And I've literally said this to Krista like a million times. Are we sure they're identical? Are we sure? I mean, they might've looked really close together when they were younger, but no, I mean, they've always had a different hairstyle. They've always looked different to me. So, I couldn't tell you they were identical if I didn't know they were identical.
Well, okay. And then you get married. Where do you get married?
We got married in Napa at Silverado Resort.
Okay. And I'm assuming it was the whole family, big family gathering, everything happened. You settled down into your lives. You're both working. Krista, tell us a little bit about your background and then your work. I mean, we didn't touch base about your college. You were not here for college. So let's talk a little bit and then about your life after marriage here.
Okay. I went to, after high school, I went to San Juan Valley in Danville, and then I went to Arizona State. I was down there for 4 years, got a psychology degree because I thought I wanted to be a child psychologist. And then kind of halfway through, I kind of started thinking about it a little more. I'm fairly sensitive individual, and I thought, oh, I don't know. I didn't think I would be a candidate that could like hear these awful things and then leave it at the office. I just thought it would consume me. So, and then I think I shared that with Dad, and he was like, that's nice. You need to graduate. So I continued with the psychology. I continued and I got the psychology degree, and then I was in Arizona, and then my grandmother, my mom's mom, my Nana, she had Alzheimer's, and things were going pretty bad, and I had a choice of, was I going to stay down there? Typically it's better, especially out of state, like, to maybe get your first job out of school where you went to school. I had worked during college at law offices, and but I was kind of interested in law as well. But anyways, but she was really sick, so I wanted to be with her, because remember, she was like my best friend. So I came home, and then I came home here, and it was horrible. It was 2002, and I just couldn't get a job. It was just a horrible time for kids coming out of college to get a job. And I was from out of the, my degree was out of the area. And then I ended up actually being a preschool teacher. I got to interact with children in a more positive way, which was better suited for me. So I did that for about 3 years, I think. And then moved. I did that for a while. I loved it, but as a single 20-something-year-old woman who was on her own, I really had a hard time supporting myself as a teacher, especially as a preschool teacher, which is too bad, because I really loved it. In fact, I still, like, some of the parents I'm still, friends with on Facebook, and all my kids are now, I think they've all pretty much graduated high school, or they're graduated high school and they're in college, so it's crazy. Then I ended up working in some real estate development, like out of the country randomly, and then got into commercial real estate. I worked in-house legal team for a commercial real estate company here they were in Oakland and then in Walnut Creek.
And then you settle into your home life in San Ramon. Do you still keep working?
When?
After marriage, after you settle down?
No,
here?
so I actually, we were living out here, and then met Danny, and within a year, I think we were out here a year together, and then he was applying for grad schools, and he applied to UC. We ended up moving out to San Francisco, and then I actually went back to school at that time because I wanted to get a master's. And so I was doing some classes to prepare to apply at that College of Marin, and then we got engaged and married and pregnant all in a very short time period, and that was it. So I have been at home, and I'm a stay-at-home mom with Enzo, so I've been home for.
So you've been a busy person, whether you were working or at home. Let's talk about the time when Enzo was born, and how was it for you, for the whole family? And I'm talking about you and Danny, and also Joyce and Greg. Take us back to that time.
I grew up with my mom. As she stated earlier, my mom had. She lost 6 babies, and I was the only one who made it, and that was always a really heavy, kind of a class. It weighed heavy. Obviously, my parents, and now being a parent, I can't even imagine. And that was always very present. And I had been told by doctors, because they didn't know why she had these issues. And so I had been told by doctors in my 20s, because we don't know what it is. It's very unusual, but it could be something that could happen with you. And if having children is really important to you, I kind of recommend, don't do anything you're not prepared for, but maybe starting earlier than later. And I just didn't work out that way. I met Danny when I was 30, I was getting older. And so when I got pregnant with Enzo, I was 34. I think maybe 34 or just 35. And the whole pregnancy was I just was convinced I was gonna miscarry. It was my first pregnancy, and it was just,
the fears.
yeah, it was just, it was very high stress that way. I was very sick for most of it. Yeah, and then he was born September 2014, 4 days late, emergency C-section, because he came about halfway, kind of getting ready to go, and then it just progress stopped, and hemorrhaging was involved, and so it was an emergency C-section, and then he was here, and I mean,
This is the best thing ever.
it's the best. Yeah, it was the best thing ever.
So let's talk a little bit about Enzo. It hasn't been easy for you as a family with Enzo. And we want our viewers to know how it is for families to go through stressful periods when there is any member, especially a younger member in the family who's not doing well. Take us back to the first time Enzo got sick, and then how it progressed to something else later on. How was that whole period for you?
Well, he was born emergency C-section. We were in the hospital for 5 days, and then we came home the following evening. I had a C-section, so I was, not, I was laid out, and Danny was changing his diaper, and it was late at night, and all I remember is he just yelled for me, and I went hobbling in there, and, and so obviously panic. So we went to go take him to Children's, and then Danny didn't like how he looked. Didn't seem he was very responsive, went back in the house, called 911. This is all probably 11 p.m., midnight. Paramedics show up, everybody, they don't like how he looks. So they throw Enzo and I in the back of the ambulance. Danny's in his car behind, and off we go to Children's Hospital, where we arrive, and, very unfortunately, met a resident who, said things she shouldn't have said, thought, there's something wrong with his heart and or his lungs, might not make it. And so really day 5 or 6, I've never been the same. It's kind of started, and we were in there for 3 days. They did every test under the sun on him, and they, after 3 days, said, "Go home, we don't know what's wrong," and which was really terrifying too. You don't want something to be wrong, but also being told they don't know what's wrong is equally scary in a way. And so we went home, and then the next day we had the regularly scheduled pediatrician appointment that you have, and we went in, and very wonderful doctor, amazing man, Dr. Ernster. He's now retired. He's in San Francisco on California Street. He looked him over and said, okay, we told him what had happened, and I don't know what that was about. And then he said, but I'm feeling his head, and I think you need to go see a neurosurgeon at Children's or at UC. And so they gave us a number to a neurosurgeon, and long story short, Enzo was diagnosed with craniosynostosis, which is the premature fusion of the plates of the skull. When you're born, you have all the different plates in your skull, and they're pliable, so your brain can grow. And his sagittal suture, which is the one that's at the top of his head, was fused together. Probably why I had hemorrhage, probably why he wasn't able to get out on his own during birth.
And also probably why he had blood in his lungs, because he hadn't come through the birth canal.
Right.
So he hadn't compressed the lungs and compressed her blood out of him.
However, so very traumatic few weeks going by with all of this unfolding. He does recover from this, and everything is going well. And then suddenly something happens again. So tell us about that. How was that revealed, and how was that for your family?
Well, so the craniosynostosis, he had to have a craniectomy at 2.5 months old, meaning they removed a part of his skull. So again, terrifying as a parent, and and so I always say we probably don't know what kind of parents we would be under more normal circumstances, but everything's just always been high alert for me, especially. So it's been a little rough trying to be normal with him. And so then last year, we finished out the school year. At the end of the school year with preschool, he kind of he's never been a huge eater, but you know, I would pick him up from school and he just maybe seemed a little more tired, or he just didn't really want to eat how he normally would when I bring him home. And you know, I started getting worried, and then one night we had a monitor on him, and we just heard like snoring, like apnea kind of sounding, you know, from his bed. And you know, we thought, what's that? And he had Danny has really bad allergies, and you know, we had talked about allergies previously, and so
we thought it was kind of cute. Like we thought, oh, he's snoring. He's so tired. He's snoring. He must be exhausted. You know, these types of things. And
so we took him in. I always had a list. You know, I took him into the pediatrician. It was June 12th actually, so it's almost been a year. And asked about it. And oh, you know, it's allergies and it's this and that. Even though it's a little late in the year for allergies, but it's allergies and blah, blah, blah. And as we were leaving, because, you know, when you go in, they weigh your child. And I remember I was already like in my head, and I remember seeing what it said on the scale, but we were like moving so fast and it kind of was stuck in the back. And I went through all this. And then on the way out, I said, wait a minute, what did he weigh? And he told me, and it was like 5 pounds lighter than he had been in February, because we had gone in February because he had like a rash on his skin. And I got all the hairs went up, and he dismissed it. And you know, as a parent, you don't want your worries to ever be confirmed. So when the professional is like, oh no, it's probably fine, whatever, you so badly want that to be true that you kind of go, okay, but not fully okay, and kind of left feeling uncertain. And he just continued the breathing, and he sounded very stuffy. And so we were giving him allergy medications, and nothing was working, and
steamers and saline rinses and doing all of the stuff that they were telling us to do, even though he wasn't getting any better with anything. He was only getting worse. And
how many weeks had transpired between the pediatrician giving you these instructions and you trying out everything? How many weeks?
We ended up taking him into the hospial August 12th.
No, it was all 12s. It was June 12th. I took him to the pediatrician the first time. July 12th. I was going to a wedding, and Danny took him to pediatrician or urgent care or something.
Pediatrician.
And there were several visits.
And nobody suspects anything, because you automatically assume it's just something else and medicine will fix it.
I suspected the whole time, and I specifically asked several times, and I was very much dismissed, very much treated like a hysterical mother, and was treated actually pretty rudely, unfortunately. And so
the pediatrician was dismissive the entire time. You know, he basically thought she was being paranoid when I would talk to him and tell him kind of professionally what I saw that I was concerned about, like 5 pounds of weight loss in a short period of time and reduced eating and the snoring and all these things. He would just say, oh, I'm sure it's fine. It was probably just a different scale. And I would say, oh, well, you know, we really want to do lab tests. Oh, we don't need to do lab tests. Well, what do you think about imaging? No, not right now. You know, and then he would say it was allergies and none of the medication.
Just not listening, not even caring. Joyce and Greg, were you involved in their conversations? Were you accompanying them to the pediatrician?
I went, I'm getting a little teary-eyed here just hearing all this. I went with Krista twice to the pediatrician and heard him just say, you know, just, oh, no, just, you know, maybe sinus infection or whatever, giving medication. And then I got the idea that maybe we needed to go to an ear, nose, and throat doctor. So Krista and I went to took him to a recommended ear, nose, and throat doctor up in Walnut Creek, and he kind of added one more medication on. And and it was just not not getting
Well,
better.
before the last time to the regular pediatrician, he said, "Oh, it's a sinus infection. It must be a sinus infection." I said, "Oh, thank God. Okay, that makes sense. You know, there wasn't air coming out of his nose anymore. He was so plugged up. Okay, that makes sense." So he gave us, a antibiotic. Came home within a week. It's not working. He's no better. And so that's when we went to the ear, nose, and throat doctor. He looked at him and said, "Oh, his adenoids are swollen." I said, "Oh, okay." Immediately, now I look at myself and I could just kick myself because I was so upset that day because I thought, oh my gosh, he's going to have another surgery. He's going to have his tonsils out. And, for any parent, again, when your 2.5-month-old baby goes into surgery and they tell you, we could lose him and you have to sign it away, it's really traumatic. And anytime you put your child under anesthesia, it's traumatic. And so I was very upset about that day. But I thought, okay, it made sense. Okay, his adenoids are swollen. So he gave us a stronger antibiotic. That was on, I think, a Wednesday.
No, he told us to stay with the same antibiotic for a couple days and then let him know if it wasn't changing. And after another day of nothing getting better, only getting worse, I called him. I hadn't even met him. And I called him and I said, "Listen, I know I didn't meet you, but you met my son yesterday. I'm very concerned about this. This antibiotic isn't working. I think we should try something different." And so he immediately called in the second antibiotic. And we tried that for about 3 days, maybe. And over the weekend, it was only getting worse.
He was getting very tired, he wasn't, and so we were,
and you could see the slow deterioration in his health. It was pretty
but you're thinking, but he's apnea, he's having apnea, so he's not sleeping well. So that's why he's tired, right? And he's, all this. And so I think.
So what is it finally diagnosed as?
Monday. So Wednesday we're at the ear, nose, and throat. He tells us all this, whatever. By Monday night, he went to work. He came home, and he comes home pretty late, and he came home, and I said, "We're taking him to Children's. I'm done." Because either something is really horribly wrong, or I just need someone else to confirm that it's okay. The adenoids take a while to if they're get inflamed, they can take a while to shrink back down to size. And I just need to hear this from someone else because something's not right. And so that was August 12th. That was August 12th. And we got in the car and we didn't come home for 2.5 weeks.
What was he diagnosed with?
So we went in, his palate, when you looked in his mouth, you could see his palate was completely dropped down. He was having a hard time breathing.
I mean, you couldn't see down his throat.
So they took one look at him and said, "Okay, we need imaging." I said, "Do you think something bad is in there?" Like I'd asked the other doctors, and they
said maybe.
They said maybe. And so that was over the middle of the night. At some point, he had a CT, and by 7 a.m., the very unkind ER doctor came in, busted open the door to the room we were in, threw a chair down, sat down, and said, "It doesn't look good." And that's how we were told. So he was diagnosed with cancer. The adenoid, his adenoids were swollen, but it was swollen with a tumor.
It was called Burkitt lymphoma.
Because the adenoids are part of the lymphatic system, which I didn't know. At that point, I didn't know. So how
do you process an information like that when somebody just comes and says those words, which is pretty much every parent's nightmare?
It is. He immediately started crying. I just was frozen for 15 minutes.
I think you don't know, you think how you're going to react in those situations. You think, especially with everything we've been through, you have a pretty good idea of how you're going to respond in these types of situations if it was ever to happen to you. And Chris and I have lived our lives supporting pediatric cancer and going to benefits and sitting there and listening to these parents talk and feeling like we could at least somewhat connect with those parents. And you get that news and there is nothing that can prepare you for it. You cannot predict how your body's going to react. If you had asked us 6 months earlier, if we were to get bad news, who would be the one crying and who would be the one frozen, I probably would have told you the exact opposite of what happened. I went out to try to call my parents and I couldn't get a word out. I couldn't get one word out. And it's something that you just can't predict. you can't expect anyone else to understand, because you can't understand it until you've been there. And it hits you at the deepest core that it can hit at. And there's not even words to explain the feeling, to be honest. It's the second
the worst. It's probably the second the worst thing you could ever hear as a parent.
And you are probably going through the motions at this point just to process whatever is coming, the paperwork and stuff. He has to be in the hospital.
Well, they started the parade. So like the parade starts. First, the social worker comes in, then the oncology fellow comes in, then the oncologist comes in. And at that point, I was, I go into fight mode. Usually I used to. Now I either just crumble or I fight. And at that point, I guess I just was a bit in fight. I was just in denial. I kept saying like, okay, wake up. I was actually pinching myself, like, cause it's the middle of the night. Like I was like, no, it's not real. This isn't real. This is insane. This is not real. Though I was never one of those people that didn't think it could happen to me or my child. I was a Make-A-Wish volunteer, a wish granter for years. And I dealt with this all the time. I went into people's homes and, tried to bring a little sunshine. And now, and the time it was so hard, from your perspective, and now being on the other end of it, man, I know now I understand those parents so much more. But anyways, the parade started, and we were immediately, let's see, in the morning, well, nothing's immediate really in a hospital, but at some point we were taken up to the 5th floor at Children's Oakland, 5 East, right? 5 South, 5, I can't believe I can't remember. It's just my brain, but it's behind the doors. It's the immunocompromised floor, and a nurse took me around and showed me around to the kitchen, to the lounge, because we were going to be living there, and I was still numb. And I think that's actually when I had already cried many times, but I kind of broke down with her. And then another complete just mess happened because the tumor, Burkitt's a really fast growing cancer. And it could double in size overnight, and it was doing that. So we got there Monday evening. Tuesday morning, he's diagnosed. By Thursday, when they gave him surgery for his port and a bone marrow aspiration, when he came out of surgery, he could not breathe on his own, and we almost lost him.
And let's talk about Enzo's age at this time, so people know.
He's 4 years old.
That's a lot for a 4-year-old to go through, a lot of medication, a lot of poking and piercing. That had to be hard to look at.
It's insane, but the tumor had doubled since we were there, at least. And so he came out of surgery and couldn't breathe. And he was in ICU. And
I'll grab his beads in a second, but this kid's been through more than most adults have been through when it comes to poking and prodding and medications and anesthesias. And, like Krista said, when we found out about the adenoids, we were concerned about one other anesthesia trip, and the number of times he's been under anesthesia now, I can't even count anymore. The number of times we just had a blood test today. The kid is getting so brave with it. It's unreal. He can tell the nurses exactly what medications he needs and in exactly what order. And he was teaching, some of the nursing students what to do. And, he understands this more than a lot of people do. And, it's, we enjoy it to the extent of like, it's amazing how amazing he is. But then there's also the side of you that goes, I can't believe my kid knows what these chemo medications are and how they work and what the order of operations is for putting an IV in, and, which anesthesia he likes and which anesthesia he doesn't. And, he's been through so much, and he's
grown up along with you guys, and become more mature, understanding what the whole process is. But in all of this pain, the emotions, the raw emotions, some good did come out of it. Enzo is healing, he's doing well, he's thriving. We're going to show our viewers his piano skills in a little while, but you, as a result of this, started an organization. and tell us a little bit more about it. What does this organization do and how people can be a part of it?
I had volunteered a lot. I mean, I'd kind of always been involved with nonprofit and had always wanted to be more involved with nonprofit. Be careful what you wish for. When we were in there, you know, it's the type of thing there's no judgment, by the way. Everyone's experience is different. And some people that go through this, they want out. And when they're out, they don't want to think as much as you can, because it still haunts you every minute of every day. But they want to move past it. They want to leave it behind, and that's fine. And there is absolutely no judgment there. For me, when this happened, all I wanted to hear was, we can save him. We have this medication. He's going to be okay. And I knew from previous, all the exposure that we had through Make-A-Wish, through just organizations that I followed, that we supported, going to galas, and, you know, we financially supported or contributed to these organizations. I knew a lot of the statistics, and I knew that less than 4% of federal funding goes for pediatric cancer research. And I knew that whereas some pediatric cancers have had great advances in treatments, usually if they coincide with an adult cancer, because adult cancers, there are more of them and they make more money for pharmaceuticals. There have been great advances there, but there are some pediatric cancers that there are little to in there, and there are some that there are no treatments. There is nothing we can do. And that's the last thing you want to hear. And so I thought, once I've seen this, I can't, you know, these kids, you're in there, you're living in there with not only your kid and your family, but these other kids and these other families. And you just can't believe this is real life. You just can't believe this is real. This really happens. And so just wanted to do something about it. Not only for Enzo, but for every other kid, for every kid who's, in honor of every kid who's gone through it, who is going through it, and for those that unfortunately will go through it, that don't know it yet, that will go through it. Wanted to do something about it. So we started a nonprofit foundation. It's called Enzo and Me, Pediatric Cancer Foundation. And there's many ways you can help. In the pediatric cancer world, there's lots of great organizations out there and doing all sorts of different ways. There's so many different ways to support. There's an organization in San Diego that they provide rides to families that they don't have ways to safely get to the hospital to get their child's treatment. They provide rides, anything from that to financially helping a family out during a hard time, or giving kids gifts or whatever. And they're all fantastic. But for me, I sat there and I thought, but what's the number one thing? What was the number one thing that I wanted in that situation? I want cures. I want treatment. I want treatment that works. I want better treatment, because these treatments, chemo is, as Enzo's oncologist puts it, it's a nuclear bomb that you set off in your body. And it's not sophisticated. I mean, has saved our son. And so I don't hate it. I don't mean to put it down. I'm very appreciative to it, but it does a lot of other damage too. And so, I thought the number one thing that raising money for research to find these cures and these better, safer treatments for kids. And so that's what we're doing. Enzo and Me, obviously Enzo, it's obvious who that's after, but the Me is, again, for all those kids who, you know, have fought and who are fighting or who will. So that's the behind the name. So that's what we're doing. It's hard some days, you know, we're kind of fresh out of it. So like today, this morning, we had a blood test because he didn't have a great blood test last time. And Mom, everything's good. He got his blood results today and he's better. So we can take a breath today.
The last one wasn't good?
Right.
It was lower than the one before.
So, but anyways, so we're doing our best, you know, and COVID kind of happened. I started writing out business plans and doing all the paperwork in we registered, we became official on September 16th, 2019, the state as a registered, you know, nonprofit organization. It was the day after Enzo's birthday. His birthday was on Sunday, so it couldn't be on his birthday, but it was the day after. And so I started in there, but then treatments and things, there's a lot of paperwork that goes into it. Anyways, we got out right when COVID hit. We were about to start going, and and then COVID hit, and it kind of put a bit of a pause, because trying to figure out how to go about starting something and asking people for money at a time when people are losing their jobs, and it's life. Yeah, but anyways, we've since gone public. Not public. We are a nonprofit. I mean, like on social media.
Announcing it to and we're going to put that information with this video. We're going to put that website and the link, and if people want to join, donate any which way. It is very hard for any parent to share any aspect of a child's life that has caused that child any pain. So I really appreciate you sharing that emotion, and hopefully anyone seeing it, I hope nobody has to go through this pain, but it's being unreal. It is a very real problem. We still don't know what's causing it, and there are many things we have to look at, and look at very carefully. These are things you cannot take lightly. It's our children, our future, and we have to protect our future. So I really thank you for sharing this aspect of your life. Joyce, I'm going to go back to you, and then we'll have Enzo play for us. I can see his little fire truck or something coming in the way. Let's talk about your parents and their end of life. How was it for you? You yourself went through a little bit of an emotional pain there. So let's talk about that.
I'm going to add one more thing that we're so passionate about, and we were before Enzo's diagnosis and my diagnosis with lymphoma myself, is these 5G cell towers that they're wanting to put around, well, throughout the world. And the studies that we've read don't look good for it. You just sat here and listened to this story, and I don't want any family to go through what we have gone through. And that's why this 5G is such a serious, serious issue for us, that people stop and study and think about this and really know what they're doing.
And I was going to talk about it at the end, because that has been a part of your family's thing that has kept you involved in the community and talking about this. But I'm glad you brought it up before I got a chance to ask you.
I mean, I just can't say, I can't say enough for this. And I talk to people, most people have never heard of the 5G. I just spoke to someone the other day, and I'm trying to remember who it was, because it was somebody, a realtor. Somebody who is a realtor and had never heard about these 5G towers. And I thought, wow, when people are selling these houses, that was maybe a tower going to be sitting right outside the house. And we work to get the message across to people about this 5G.
And it's a universal message that many scientists around the world are now trying to spread, even before this gets rolled out in other neighborhoods, other cities. Again, a lot of research still is missing. There are many missing elements to this whole 5G conversation. And this is an ongoing conversation in our city as well. And that's how your family has stayed involved. So that's always a good thing, to have that resident involvement to bring results.
Yes.
Tell us, now let's go back to your parents and your story about them.
Well, I just wanted to add something in about my parents. I'm getting teary-eyed over this, but my dad grew up in a home that he and his parents did not get along well. And there was always a lot of arguing and a lot of disappointment for he and his brother, as far as we're going to take you to the zoo, and then not going, and whatever. And my mom grew up in a home that was much happier. There was a lot more laughter. It's just that she lost her father when she was very young. And so anyway, my dad decided that he was going to have a life where everything was more calm. And I hand it to my dad for doing that. He could have acted just like his dad did, but he didn't. I had a childhood. I mean, nothing's perfect, but I mean, I had a childhood with very, very loving parents, with a lot of respect and love. And I've learned from my parents, and I've taught every child that I've ever had in my classroom, that respect and love doesn't cost you a penny, and it can make all the difference in the world. And it's so important that people respect each other and love each other. And that's a very important message. I'm hoping someday maybe to write a book. But anyway, I just wanted to say I thank my parents for that. And I was just going to say my dad had these aneurysms like I have, and he died very suddenly with his aneurysm. He was out in the morning driving the car to have breakfast with his brother, came home, sat down, and he passed away. It was very hard on my mom. My parents were very close. So I think that kind of started my mom's journey with the Alzheimer's, but she lived another 15 years, and we had her at Sunrise Assisted Living in Danville. She passed away in 2007, so she was there from 2002 to 2007. It was wonderful. They were wonderful to her, and she was a happy, I don't know how to say it, but she was a sweet lady, right, with the Alzheimer's. Sometimes people, because their personalities change, but she would still kiss all the nurses' hands and whatever. I just want to say I had wonderful parents. And I just wanted to make sure that I put that in there, and the foundation they gave me has certainly helped me get through my life.
And that's, I think, a parent's wish to see their children grow up with whatever values they try to imbibe and live that every single day of their life. We really thank you, Joyce, for sharing that and talking about it, even though it's hard for you. Yeah. Looking at your grandson now, looking at your beautiful family, Krista is sitting here, Danny, I know we're sheltered in place, and it sucks that we're looking at each other through a little screen, but it's still a comforting thought to know they're all there. Yeah, the family is whole and back again in your separate homes. We have Enzo, who's joined us now, and let's introduce Enzo to our viewers. So Enzo, tell us a little bit about what you enjoy doing, and then we want to hear you play the piano. We heard you are an expert in playing the piano.
So what I really like doing is, I built this out of Lego, and I was playing with it for a couple minutes on the table.
What else do I do?
I like to ride my Power Wheels, and I like to ride my bike. And
when did you learn how to ride a bike?
I don't really know. A couple days, a little while, a couple weeks ago.
That's Ruby.
That's Ruby.
And no, he can be in the frame. And do you take him also for a ride with you, Enzo?
What?
Does he also come for a ride with you? Does he sit on the back side and you take him?
Well, in my Power Wheels, I have the passenger seats, I have a John Deere, and I have a Dune Racer. And well, the John Deere has high seats, so my Dune Racer has very low seats, like flat seats. So one day, I was in the backyard. Daddy put saran wrap around the 4 wheels. And I got in.
So they didn't stay in the pavers. That's why. Anyways.
Yeah. And the funniest thing happened. We made a choice that we put Rugi inside the passenger seat and we drove around.
It was pretty funny.
And you,
First we tried goggles, which for dogs. Goggles for dogs are called doggles.
that's a new term I would never have known, and my vocabulary is increasing as I'm talking to you. And so I'm going to ask you one thing. There are many children who may be watching this video later on.
Yes.
You were sick for a little while.
Yes.
How did it feel for you, and how was it at that time when you were taking all the medications and then feeling better but not really enjoying all that? How was that experience for you?
Well, I didn't when I was in the ICU, I had a breathing tube and there was suction in there and I hated it.
Why did you hate it? What was it about that tube?
It felt really weird.
But you had to do it because it was going to keep you well.
Get better, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
but it my boogers went down the tube and then they sucked out my boogers.
Oh.
And it was uncomfortable.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I squeezed the tube so they couldn't get in there.
Yeah, you bite it and they
Bite
couldn't
it.
get in there, huh?
And
What?
now you're doing well and you're enjoying your life, even though you don't get to go out much with everything going on. Well, this was a wonderful conversation we had. Thank you, Joyce. Thank you, Enzo, Danny, and Krista for sharing your stories. We're going to put all the information out for people who want to know more about your organization, your nonprofit organization.
Thank you.
And we wish you nothing but the best as you move forward in your life. There is so much to accomplish, so many things to do, and the very best to all of you.